people who have military backgrounds, have a really strong work ethic.
If you want to hire some guys from military backgrounds, there are like a ton of them in Korea because they all have to go to military. Hi, my name is Josh. I'm CEO here at Channel Talk. This is the series called Coffee Table. We always like bring experts over a cup of coffee, especially for topics across the customer experience. Hey, Cora, can you please introduce yourself?
Hi, I'm Cora. I am a CX manager in Channel Talk, especially the only CX manager for US team. Very happy to be here and glad to have a conversation with Dan Bradley. I'm so excited.
All right. And today I have Dan Brady here, who's the Director of Customer Success at Awesome CX. So, Dan, welcome.
Hey Josh, thank you so much for having me. I'm excited to be here.
Yeah, so there's a rule for this series. You gotta prepare your drinks.
Yeah,
I'm
of
sure
course.
that
Well,
you.
it's the afternoon time here in California, and I don't like to have coffee too late in the day. So today, my beverage of choice will be a Spindrift. So I've got my Spindrift here. Not sponsored or anything, but definitely love my Spindrift. And again, happy to be here on the podcast.
Great.
Oh, I just have my cup of coffee, but actually this cup is from Korean secondhand market. This cup has been with me for more than 10 years. It's my little memory from Korea.
Okay. Mine is We Work Coffee. I wish it's sponsored. Thank you so much for your time today. And feel free to introduce yourself.
Yeah, sure. So my name is Dan Brady. Like Josh said, I am a director of customer success here at Awesome CX. Awesome CX is a BPO that really specializes in helping startups and mid-market companies seamlessly outsource their customer experience. Again, thank you so much for having me here today, and I'm really looking forward to our conversation.
Yeah, how's that experience? Like, you were actually working with outsourced BPO, and then you decided to join the team. I think that's very interesting story. Can you start from there?
Yeah, I'd be happy to. That's a great starting point. So, short answer is it's been great. It's been really fun and enjoyable, and I'm happy that I made the move that I did. Of course, I think that there are some pros and cons to, being on the brand side of things versus being on the vendor side of things. So, I have to admit, I don't get invited to nearly as many parties or dinner dates or events. When you're on the brand side of thing, everyone has something that they want to sell you, and so you get invited to a lot of things. In fact, this time last year, I was at Shop Talk in Las Vegas, where vendors would fly you out, put you in a nice hotel. You're getting invited to dinner parties every evening. I didn't get really a whole lot of invites this year, but that's okay. I'm really enjoying what I'm doing. And it's fun being on this side of things, really helping brands seamlessly outsource their customer experience.
That's too bad, but still,
It's
you know.
okay.
All
I
right.
mean, the good news is now I get to be the one who invites brand partners and prospects out for fun events, right? So,
Oh
just
yeah.
last week, we took some of our clients out to the LA Clippers game. That was a lot of fun. And, we routinely get to bring clients to fun sporting events, entertainment events, dinners, lunches, coffee, you name it. So, it's all good. I'm just on the other side of things now, the one paying for a lot of the fun activities that we do together.
Clippers game. How was that?
It was good. Yeah, it was my first time going to Crypto.com Arena and going to a Clippers or Lakers game. So the game itself was pretty entertaining. So it's a fun way to spend time with brand partners.
Yeah, I mean, speaking of like sports, that we know that you've been starting your career in the beginning with the sports, and then you decided to move your career to CX side, and I really want to hear more about that.
Yeah, I'd be happy to. So, for those listening, when I first graduated undergraduate, I wasn't sure what I wanted to do with my career. And so, what I did is I worked as a graduate assistant at my alma mater, where basically my university was giving me a small stipend, but they were also paying for my graduate studies. And in exchange, I was working as an assistant soccer coach for the men's soccer team where I had played 4 years. It was a good experience. I'm really grateful for the experience and the learnings. But I think what I found is that you don't need to work in an industry that you're passionate about, right? And so sports are a passion of mine. I thought since I was a kid, I want to work in sports in some capacity, whether it's coaching or, working
Hmm.
in the front office or something like that. But for me, I find I can still be passionate about sports and enjoy it, but I don't need to do it as a career path. We could all probably agree maybe you're passionate about movies. That doesn't mean you need to be a film director or an actor or actress. And maybe you love reading, but that doesn't mean that you need to be an author in your career. So you
Definitely.
can still have passions that you hang on to outside of your career.
Yeah. Still play soccer?
A little bit, yeah, not as often as I'd like. I'd say I'm more into like cycling and running and lifting weights, but I would like to play soccer.
Do you think your interest and career that actually started from sports actually affected your career in CX?
For me, I think that sports are a passion of mine and something that I had considered doing as a full time career. And after a while, I decided, this is not what I'd like to do full time. And it just kind of eventually led me to somewhere where, you step back and think about, well, what do I want to do? Where do I want to live? And ultimately, I was young in my career and I just decided that I wanted to move out to California and San Diego. And, I started my career in sales and wound up in customer experience. But I think that my experience as like a former student athlete and then, coaching for the first 2 years after graduating, those experiences definitely helped shape who I am and ultimately led me to where I'm at today.
Sales team is sometimes called it's like a sports team. It's also a team play, but still it's a competition inside as well. You have the aces, you have the your opponents to follow up, and there's a lot of similar chemistry in sales and being a sports team.
Yeah.
You're individually performing, but in a team wise, you're actually achieving bigger goal as a team. So do you think it does have similarity with that? Can you agree with this?
Yeah, absolutely. When I think about my time in sports, I think a lot of the skills and intangibles that I developed through playing sports have really translated well into a career in sales and customer experience. So to your point, really being competitive. I think in sales especially, you have to be competitive and really work hard to achieve your quota. But beyond that, I think also when you look at the intangibles that really great athletes have as far as being good teammates, right? You need to be reliable, you need to be hardworking, you need to be a good communicator, you need to be a good teammate. And so I think a lot of the skills that I've developed through my time as a former student athlete really helped set me up for good success in my career. Oftentimes when I'm looking to hire people, if I see that they were a former student athlete, to me, that's a really good indicator that chances are they'll probably be a pretty good employee too, because you have to have a strong work ethic. I know that if you played on a team, chances are you're probably a pretty good teammate, and yeah, it takes a lot of consistent effort to be an athlete, and so I think a lot of those things translate to being a really good employee or even business owner.
And what about CX team? Do you think there's just some similarity or lessons that you can actually get from being a sports coach, like soccer coach, and also maybe being a CX manager or a leader of the CX team?
Absolutely, yeah. So that's a good point. Beyond just being an athlete, my career being like a coach for a few seasons, there are similarities between coaching and working in CX. So a great analogy I would say would be like game planning, right? It's kind of similar when you're working in CX. Like if you're a CX manager, you're probably game planning, but the difference is there's matches like every day. If you're in CX, every day there's a new game plan. You have to look at, hey, what is the volume like today? Am I putting the team members on my team in a position to be successful? What does that look like or mean? Okay, well, you have to evaluate like what channels are you offering? Okay, are you putting the right people on the right channels at the right time and playing to their strengths? Some people might excel at live chat where they can multitask and communicate with 4 or 5 different people at once. Other people, that might not be their strength. Maybe they're a really strong voice agent and they love speaking with people and they have very good verbal communication skills. Well, maybe someone is really shy and they prefer communicating via email and like that's their strength. Or even some people excel at social media because they're very good at using like brand voice and tone. And so, yeah, I think going back to your question, being like a sports coach really translates well into being a good CX manager because I think a lot of it comes down to game planning and road mapping and putting people on your team in a position to be successful.
Does it actually start from like recruiting as well?
That's a great point, Josh, that it even starts, in team building and assembling. And so there's so many analogies that one could use to compare being a good sports coach and being a good CX manager, because I think there's recruiting, there's game planning, but then there's even like team building and team morale, right? And something that's super important as a CX manager is, you can't lose the locker room. And so if you're a coach who maybe struggles to relate to your players, or maybe you're way too strict on them, maybe you micromanage them. If the team morale is not strong and they don't feel united and unified in like a common goal, then that creates all types of problems where maybe you have turnover. The agents are not going to perform as well if their morale is low. Agents and players always want to improve, and you as the coach, you need to give them the feedback necessary in order to improve, or else everything will just stay stagnant and there won't be improvements.
That's very interesting. Like from the recruitment, game planning, and also operating within like locker rooms and just like motivating people. That's I think the all very important aspect as a leadership who's like forming and operating a team. I'm actually a little more curious about if you have certain know-hows or regarding recruiting, who are likely to be great talents
Yeah,
regarding
I mean,
CX.
again, I always I resonate a lot with like student athletes, but I think we've already talked a lot about that, right? So some other ones that I might point to could be like military background. I think people who have military backgrounds, I mean, they certainly have a really strong work ethic. I think there's no question about that, and a lot of the prep work that goes into being successful in the military does, I think translate well into all types of careers. Now, one that I really like is I like people who maybe come from non-traditional backgrounds. So I think sometimes some of the best CX people that I know have come from like bootstrap companies or really dysfunctional organizations. They've got in at the ground level, and they've like built a CX team and organization from the ground up. So CX is
Mhm.
interesting in that you don't really need to look for prestigious educational backgrounds. Give me someone who comes from like a really scrappy background, and maybe they've done like door to door sales. That's another great example. Like if you have
Oh
people
wow.
who have gone door to door selling like vacuums or Cutco knives or anything
Mhm.
like that, I think that shows me that like you're probably a hustler and you probably have a really good work ethic. And oftentimes that is a lot of what you need in order to be successful in sales or CX.
That's very interesting. Yeah, so Cora is actually somewhat has a similar background with you. She's not from the sports, but she's from musical background as a professional, and then she changed her career to startup and also being a operations manager and also CX manager as well. Cora, as you hear like Dan's story, do you think you can actually relate?
I actually was gonna add the stage performers, like the orchestra players or one of the choir members, are also a great candidate for CX agent or even CX manager, because they know how to take care of their health and mental for their great performance, and they also understand how to be a great teammate.
And if you want to hire some guys from military backgrounds, there are like a ton of them in Korea because they all have to go to
I
military.
was going to say, yeah, I wanted to make a comment that I know military service is mandatory in South Korea.
Yeah,
So you might have a harder time filtering that out, because if everyone has military
exactly.
backgrounds, then it could be more challenging to find the hidden gems who could excel in CX. But I'm
That's true.
sure, maybe I could reverse it and I could ask you, Josh, like, as you've built Channel Talk, like what type of qualities or backgrounds do you look for in employees?
Yeah, I couldn't leverage the military part because everyone goes to military. Yeah, that's a hard question. Usually, I think what I agree with you is that I do look deeply into someone passionate and also high work ethics. As a startup founder, I feel like there's no road, and we're just like making the road, and definitely we're gonna takes a lot more effort and energy to just not to give up, just to overcome the circumstances. Regarding that, I think high ethics and positive energy is definitely what we don't want to miss out. When I was a team under like 50, high energy, high level of working ethic, that was a most important thing. These days, after like looking into around like 200 headcounts, I feel like there is a balance, definitely. If you fill your whole team with everyone who just work hard, there should be some leaderships between those hard workers and the C levels. It's like sometimes you're missing something and you just look at the team and they're like going totally different totally different way, and it takes a lot of time and energy to like get them on board and just perfectly align everything. So these days I think there are like more aspects or talents that I'm actually looking into, which is that you definitely want to more organized or operation guys who could make your team more productive.
Yeah, I mean, how I interpret that is having strong work ethic for your employees is a given when you're in the early stages of your startup, right? You need people
Yeah.
who are willing to work hard. Well, why is that? Chances are they might have to wear multiple hats or do
Hmm.
different functions, right? So, in the startup world, I think people are used to rolling up their sleeves and doing things that are maybe a little bit outside of their scope of responsibility, and work ethic is important. But to scale the business, eventually you need to bring in experts who can maybe focus on operational efficiencies. And don't get me wrong, I don't mean to discount anyone's work ethic, but the
Hmm.
phrase work smarter, not harder, right? Like at a certain point, you want to find people who can really optimize efficiencies and, still have those hard workers, but bring in
Yeah.
processes and SOPs that will hopefully reduce the number of hours or time spent on stabilizing and improving the business, and really instead just streamline operations and make things easier for your team, right? So it's great to have people with strong work ethic, but it's also great to bring in people who have operational excellence who can then in turn make life easier for your employees and of course for yourself as CEO.
Yeah, so I think efficiency is definitely a great keyword for BPO companies as well. When you're getting, the job for brands or the companies that outsource the communication on behalf of the inside team, if you think about like BPO companies, efficiency is definitely an important keyword.
Yep.
I was wondering like how Awesome CX feel like this is a really right word to suitable for the team.
When I think about BPO, the term efficiency definitely comes to mind, and that's something that both our current brand partners and maybe prospective brand partners are seeking, right? I think companies decide to outsource for that reason in large part because, one, from a cost efficiency standpoint, usually if you're outsourcing, there's greater savings involved, right? So that's one area where, hey, companies are outsourcing, they're getting more efficient work, which means that their cost is going down, their cost per resolution goes down. But beyond that, companies decide to outsource to BPOs because the people who are doing the functions are really experts in their craft and come with a lot of experience, and therefore can improve efficiencies and just drive greater results for the team members, right? And I think the last thing I'd say is that at a high level, a BPO should also be kind of helping you to evaluate any areas of improvement that you might have within your organization. So, hey, you should speak with our workforce management team, and we can work with you to come up with a game plan on how we can, change when your team is staffed on what channels to drive greater efficiency and results, right? So, I think there's three areas you can look at. There's cost efficiencies. There's driving greater results through outsourcing with people who have a lot of CX experience, and then a BPO should also be able to help their brand partners review any areas of improvement to drive greater efficiencies, more from like an operational standpoint, meaning adjusting staffing and scheduling and putting people in the right positions to deliver faster response time for customers.
Yeah, that was a great answer. Thank you. Just going back to like BPO and Awesome CX, like you do have a very, I would say, interesting career. Like you've been inside the brand and you are now a partner of a brand. And you just mentioned it that you're the host of the party now. You're the host
Yeah.
of the guest sending invitation, and that's something different. And as a CX manager who actually worked inside and also outside of the brands, what do you feel is the most different? And maybe you know the answer of like how to work with BPO companies and everything. So can you share your like recent thoughts about
Yeah,
this?
I mean, again, as far as differences, I think, being a CX leader for a brand, you're very focused on the customers, and there's a lot more of them, right? So at Pura Vida, like we would get over 1,000 inquiries per day, right? That's over 1,000 different people who are reaching out to us about either their order or maybe questions before they order or just general questions, right? But you're really casting a wide net. There's about 1,000 people per day who you have the ability to change their perception about your company, right? So think about servicing 1,000 customers. Well, for me, like I'm working with under 10 different brands for the time being, right? So what does that mean? It means obviously like it's much higher level. At Pura Vida, our customers were buying $7 bracelets, and there's 1,000 of them. Well, that's much different than companies who are trusting us with outsourcing a whole CX team, right? It's much higher. It's much more intimate. I'm in touch with brand partners almost every day, at least weekly, biweekly, monthly. So it's still at its core about servicing the customer. It's just in one environment, you're servicing
Mhm.
thousands of customers who you might not speak with directly every day. You're more monitoring the dashboard. Hey, how are our response times looking? How is CSAT looking? How's our NPS score looking? You're driving the technology. Like at Pura Vida, I'm in charge of what vendors we work with, what our tech stack looks like. Well, on this side of things, I might be able to voice my opinion if a brand partner seeks my opinion on their tech stack or if they have general questions or need my assistance. But it's obviously much fewer customers, but at the same time at a much higher level because they're trusting us with outsourcing their CX, which is a big honor and privilege and responsibility, and not something that myself or any of my colleagues take lightly. And so, um, again, the similarity is it's still servicing customer. It's just that at the brand side of things, it's more transactional. There's way more customers that I don't speak with every day. Whereas like with brand partners, there's much fewer of them, but the relationship is much closer. And again, they're still in charge of deciding what tech stack or vendors work best for their organization. Whereas, when I'm a CX leader, you're kind of the one who is making those decisions for your organization.
So about the customer base of Awesome CX, who are the current customers and like usually is it based on e-commerce and what industries are they in?
Yeah, great question. So I would say the majority of our portfolio consists of e-com and D2C brands. And part of why that is, one, I think it's probably the largest industry that most BPOs service. And then, of course, happy customers lead to referrals. And so I think over the last 15 years, we've done a good job of keeping our customers happy, and they're happy to give us referrals, which then brings us to more e-com and D2C brands. We do service like fintech organizations, also CPG, so consumer packaged goods. For us too at Awesome CX, we're not only CX, but like customer facing, but we also do like back office stuff. E-com and D2C is definitely the largest chunk in our portfolio. We have some fintech, also healthcare too. That's an important one. We work with a lot of healthcare companies.
How big is the team?
The Awesome CX team.
Yeah.
So geez, I mean, if you're including all of our overseas talent, I would say about 4,000 at least. And then we're also owned by a larger, more traditional BPO called Transcom out of Sweden. And
Mhm.
if you include them, I mean, I think they're creeping up towards like 30,000. It's a big organization. But yeah, I would say for Awesome CX, we have a pretty small team here, mainly in Southern California, Los Angeles area. I would say the team is maybe around 20 internal. And then, again, we do have a lot of people overseas in the Philippines and Bogota, Colombia. And I would say Awesome CX is probably around 4,000 people total.
I always thought it was very interesting to like manage people overseas. Yeah, so more questions about like working with BPO companies. The situations could be different, but first, like how do you know like what's the right time to start working with BPO?
Yeah, it's a great question. And as we were prepping for this podcast, I was thinking about that. And one thing that I would say is a clear indicator for when you need BPO is if you're having people within your organization who are not in CX answer customer inquiries, it's time to consider outsourcing. So what I mean by that, like if you have a team and quarter 4 rolls around and you have a huge holiday sale and you exceed your sales number and you're doing great, but then you're having to bring in your web developer or your graphic artist or your sales manager to answer CX inquiries, you probably need to consider outsourcing because that's not what you pay them to do, right? Like, okay, you can maybe do it short term. Obviously, it's a solution. You owe it to your customers to give them a as timely of a response as possible. But I know that was literally the case at Pura Vida. I had heard stories from before I joined where they had a really big, successful Q4 sale, and they were having to bring in people from other departments to answer customer inquiries. Well, how do you think that went? Do you think that they did as good of a job as a CX team? Probably not, right? So I think anytime you're asking employees from other departments to help with CX, chances are that's a pretty clear indicator that you need to consider outsourcing.
Mm-hmm.
But jokes aside, and that is, I think that's a clear indicator. But I think beyond that, if you're in any major city where cost of living is pretty expensive and maybe you have an internal team, just monitor your turnover and attrition rate. Like if you have high turnover rates within your CX team and you're in a major city, it's challenging because we know that if you're going to live in a major city, like in this case, I live in San Diego. I've worked for organizations where it's a revolving door and you can't maintain a consistent CX team. Why is that? Well, the cost of living is pretty high. And sometimes these CX roles, especially entry level, they don't always pay super well. And so, I don't think anyone wants to spend their entire career working as an entry level CX agent. But if you're not quickly moving up and getting yourself in a better position for growth opportunities or in a better financial state, then, it's going to be kind of a revolving door. And so I think that's another indicator that you probably need to consider outsourcing is if you have very high turnover within your CX team and people are either leaving the company or they want to switch to a different department. I think that's also a pretty clear indicator. It's at least time to have the conversation and think about it.
It's about time to leave it to experts, or you
Right.
need experts help to
Yeah,
solve this
totally.
situation.
And I think when people think about BPO, they think about the cost savings, and that's kind of the first thing that comes to mind. But think about how many brands in e-com and D2C outsource, we'll use email marketing as an example. Probably a
Mhm.
lot of them, right? They might say, hey, we're going to outsource this function because we don't have trusted experts that we can hire in this field. So we're going to outsource email marketing to an agency. Or, hey, another one would be customer acquisition, right? How many companies in the D2C ecosystem outsource to an ad agency because they can deliver better results? It's the same thing with outsourcing customer experience. It's not only any cost savings associated, which is a pro, no doubt. But it's also about just doing it with trusted experts who really know CX and also just culturally, like really embrace CX because not every culture does.
And when you decided to yeah, this is the right time to outsource and start working with BPO companies, what's the best way to start find a BPO partner that's really good for your business?
I think if you're a smaller company, probably just ask around in your network and you probably have a few people that you trust and maybe ask other questions to, like, hey, we want to find a good ad agency or we're looking for a great graphic artist. Like the first thing is ask people in your network and start there. But I think for certain organizations, they can also consider what they call an RFP or an RFI, which is like request for more information. So it's pretty common in our industry where a company is considering outsourcing and they're considering multiple vendors and they just want to learn more. And so what they'll do is they'll compile a list of questions that cover everything from operational requirements, security and
Mhm.
data protection. Doing an RFI or RFP, as they're called, are really great exercises to just let vendors essentially try and earn your business and tell you why, in their mind, they're the right partner for you.
If you could define awesome CX, what would you say this is awesome as CX perspective?
Yeah, I mean, what I'd say when thinking about awesome CX is our culture is rooted in fun, wellness, and inclusivity. And when you're thinking about associations with BPO, you probably don't associate those three words. But why is it that we, Awesome CX, focus on these three pillars for our organization? These drive greater results. When you focus on these, it really allows for a great culture. And I've seen firsthand, I mean, a number of people who I work with that are supporting our brand partners started off as entry level agents and have now since become like senior site operations managers where they've been there like 10 years. And it can be challenging when you're dealing with customers. Not every customer is going to be super easy to deal with, and there's a lot of things that can go wrong in the customer journey. And so, just putting our team in a position to be successful by really giving them the tools and resources to,
Hmm.
be happy and develop their careers. I mean, we as a BPO, it's kind of unheard of. I mean, we have a daycare center, a rock climbing wall, doctors and nurses office in our facilities, massage therapists, mental health therapists, beautiful offices with, co-working spaces and meeting rooms, and no cubicles or anything like that, just a beautiful modern workspace. So we know that customer experience is not an easy job, and so we just try and give all the tools and resources necessary for our team to be successful.
Yeah, you said there's a advantage for military people, right? So I'm one of the candidates,
Yeah,
definitely.
yeah, yeah. I
Like
mean,
you're,
you're probably
oh,
you're more than qualified. I mean, you're CEO of a great company, so I think you'd be pretty easy to sell regardless of military experience. But
okay. Thank you. All right. Thank you, Dan, so much for joining us today. Thank you, everyone listening or watching Coffee Table series. I'm Josh, the host for today. Thank you, Cora, for supporting me today as well. So, yeah, everyone, when you're joining this series, I hope you have a cup of coffee or drinks together with us and have a good time. If you enjoyed today's discussion, don't forget to like and subscribe. And we look forward to having you back more for insightful conversation with CX experts. Thank you, Dan.
thank you, Josh. Thank you, Cora. I really appreciated it. And surely I look forward to more conversations with all of you, both about CX, and I'm sure we'll also discuss some other stuff like sports and Sunny, of course.
Definitely. Yeah. Thank you so much, guys. Bye bye. Have a great day.
Take care, everyone.